Afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Athey, President of Congressional Capital, and I'm excited today to have Ian Ruel, who's the co-founder of Feldman Ruel, on with us. And we're going to talk to Ian a bit about his journey, professional journey, personal journey, get to know more about him. Ian, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Thanks for being here. So, Ian, tell me about your background. Like, how did you get into real estate?
I think an interesting, kind of unique journey. I'm from Michigan originally. Grew up playing hockey and played hockey in Bowling Green, Ohio, when I went to college. And so I had zero ties to the DC area. I had zero ties to commercial real estate. My parents weren't in it. My relatives weren't in it. So I knew nothing about the industry.
Yep.
Prior to moving to DC. So I graduated from college. I'd spent a lot of my time just really focused on hockey. So I really didn't have a ton of professional experience. I
So
really didn't
everybody
know
wants to know how good of a hockey player were you? I know, but tell everybody else.
what. Don't look me up online. So I'm going to tell you that I was good, but if you do any sort of digging, you'll understand that I actually wasn't that good. But I was able to play Division One hockey at Bowling Green, and I'm proud of that. But I definitely was not a difference maker on the ice in college.
How good was Bowling Green when you were there?
Not very good. They're in rebuilding mode now. They're I think as of I don't really track it all that closely, but they were a top 20 team at some point this year.
Wow,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so they're not top five, they're not top 10, but it's a good program with a good coach and they're heading in the right direction. So it's
Oh, that's
been fun to
awesome.
watch from afar.
So, in terms
Um,
of folks you grew up playing with, does anybody play professionally?
I played junior hockey in Indiana with a guy named John Carlson who played for the Caps for 17 years. Is
Wow,
now in
awesome.
Anaheim, unfortunately. Not happy about that. Not happy about how that played out. I played
Yeah, that's a
college
bizarre
hockey.
situation, right? Like, how do you play for a franchise for 17 years? I didn't know it was that long. It seemed like quite a long time. I don't follow hockey, and then end up in Anaheim, as part of, was it a trade or
It
something?
was a trade. It was a very interesting trade that was made. I think it was a good trade for the Caps from a business perspective, but I think not my place, but unfortunate how it kind of played out. Hopefully he'll come back here to end his career, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't.
Ah, that's a bummer, man. And you guys are good friends, huh?
Yeah, he's a good buddy. He's a good buddy. Played with a couple other guys that, like Andrew Hammond, played for Ottawa for a while. Played with him in college. So played with a few guys that had good NHL careers. But John's definitely by far the most impressive guy I ever played with by
Yeah, yeah.
far.
He's had a hell of a career. That's awesome stuff. And you still play to this day, right?
Still play. I kind of lost it for a few years, having kids and just being distracted with work. But I started a Friday pickup league, as you know, because you connected me with one of our goalies who I love, Chris Deutsch.
He's an amazing
Um,
guy. Awesome guy.
Amazing guy. So that's
He'll be
grown. I
great.
got 100 plus guys in that list, and we've been having a blast. I'm playing tomorrow morning. It'll be great. So
What time
very
do you guys
excited about it.
play?
7:15 a.m. at Rockville. If anybody's on this that is into hockey and wants to get on the list, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have you.
Fabulous. Great way to like network and meet new people, et cetera, right?
It's a lot of real estate people. So it's probably 60, 70% real estate people. That's kind of been organic because that's just like who I know.
Yeah.
But it's a great group. It's a fast skate. It's gotten better and better, I think, every.
So where's the best junior hockey in the country? Since I have you on, I may as well ask you. Like, is there some area that's really good at it?
When you say, I mean, there's.
Like for kids, like are the
Oh, for
kids around?
kids,
Yeah, are the kids around here good or it's
it's the big three. It's Michigan, Minnesota, and Massachusetts.
yeah, I
But
got
there's now these little pockets. Hockey's grown a lot, so you got kids like Austin Matthews, who's one of the best players in the NHL, came out of Arizona. You got kids coming out of Florida, California. So it's more spread out than it used to be, but it's still the Michigan, Minnesota, and Massachusetts are still the elite
Yeah, I
areas to
guess as
grow
the
up.
NHL branches out and little kids grow up going to games in Florida and otherwise, they get excited and want to play.
100%. I mean, the good teams right now are in the tax-free states, which are typically in the South. So you've got last year, it was Dallas, the Florida Panthers, and Vegas. And then I'm blanking on the fly. I'm blanking on who the fourth. Oh, it was Edmonton. But so you've got these like,
Yeah, totally.
southern states that are kind of exploding from a hockey perspective. It's been cool to watch.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, when I was growing up, there was no Florida Panthers. There's no Southern hockey at all. There's,
Right.
I guess there's a team in Carolina, the Hurricanes maybe or
Yeah,
something.
and they're really good. They're
Yeah.
one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, so it's pretty bizarre. It was back then. It was you just thought of sort of like the cold weather states and then some of the larger
Yeah.
cities. But
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Well, I could learn more about hockey all day, but like, how do you go from like hockey to real estate?
It's funny, a guy that I played junior hockey with actually when I was playing with John, his dad was in commercial real estate and he was a developer out in this area. And I always knew that he was a successful developer in the DC area. And when I was trying to really figure out what I want to do, for some reason, I kept gravitating towards real estate. I didn't really know what that meant, whether it was residential or commercial. But I talked to him and I told him, like, hey, for some reason, I'm kind of gravitating towards commercial real estate. Where do you think, for someone that's not from the DC area, which is for some reason a place that I've targeted, I wanted to live. And doesn't know anything about commercial real estate, has no history and no relationships here. Where's a good place to start? And he told me that brokerage, was a good place to learn kind of every facet of the business. You're going to make really strong relationships. You're going to kind of learn how deals are put together. So that kind of stuck with me. And when I was a senior in college, I started to look at different brokerage opportunities in DC. Ultimately, it was a couple different iterations. It'd be too long of a story to tell, but I ended up at Marcus and Millichap
Yep.
in 2013, and I was there for 7 years. Started working for my now partner, Josh Feldman, and in 2020 we started Feldman Ruel.
So did they have like a wheel program back in the day? Like when you started, I know some of the bigger firms have like what they call a wheel program, where like you start in one sector, you do apartments, you do, you do warehouses, you do office, whatever, and then bounce it around and then you kind of like figure out what you like and figure out where the partner junior relationship, meshes and then go from there. Or was it smaller than that?
That would have been cool. I would have enjoyed that. They didn't have that. What they had is like you basically got there on day one. You spent a few weeks trying to figure out which team you wanted to be on and which team actually wanted you, which was
Yep.
probably more important. And so I gravitated towards, again, my now partner, Josh Feldman. And what they have is like this training program that lasts for anywhere from 6 to 12 months. You go through internal training with them to understand, the business, how to be a broker. They would do cold calling role play sessions. They did a lot of that type of stuff. But on the other side of it, you were also working, I was working under Josh, basically as a glorified executive assistant.
Yeah.
I would do everything from like putting together a purchase agreement to grabbing his coffee. But
Totally.
that was really good for me because in college, my summers were not spent really doing internships. It was like training for the next season and doing like landscaping work. So for me, it was a good way to develop my professional skill set. I really
No,
needed
it's a
that.
great way. Like you get into the fire. When I first started Congressional Capital and was doing development work, I had a young guy start with me and he kind of started as an intern and he was doing all those kind of things. He was doing
Yeah,
going to get my coffee. He was probably picking up dry cleaning. He was,
that was me.
he was like holding my baby when he
Yeah,
needed to. He was doing kind of everything. And he worked with me for like 5 years and he moved back to the West
yeah,
Coast. And he now has a great job, Red Bull, doing their build outs and doing their building acquisitions all over the country.
that's pretty cool.
Really more on the build out side, but really cool. He's out in California. He's surfing. He works for a cool company.
It's
He's
living the
kind of living the
dream.
life, and he's on my
I'm
brain.
jealous.
I'm going to see him this weekend. So it's kind of cool that you started off with Josh, and you guys are still obviously close. Your partner. What's the takeaway from your experience at Marcus and Millichap? I mean, what did you learn there? How did that help you get to where you are today?
Marks and Millichap is like, it's such a good place to start your career because they impress upon you the fundamentals of brokerage, which
Yep.
is like, hey, put your freaking head down, make a bunch of calls, meet with as many people as possible, and just see what sticks.
Yep.
And that is not the mentality that I think you get working at a larger brokerage company where it's a little more, targeted sniper versus kind of a shotgun approach.
Yeah.
So I
Totally.
think those are like good skills to learn. Like I had to cold call, make a lot of cold calls, get myself into uncomfortable situations to put myself out there. And I did that for, 5+ years and developed that type of skill set. And now at, Feldman Rule, we have a lot of those, trying to make that same type of impression on our agents in terms of how to start your career. Really getting out there. Really
Do they have a minimum number of calls per day you had to make when you were a young, associate starting?
It wasn't like boiler room, like if you don't hit
Yeah.
this, we're firing you, but it's highly advisable that you make over, 50 calls a day and try to average 200 plus phone calls a week.
Do you remember the first deal that you got from cold calling? You remember that or no?
Yeah, I do. I do. The first deal I ever closed was a $350,000 deal. I was so freaking happy. I couldn't believe how much money I made. And that was when I was paying the company, I was paying Josh, and so I was left with 25% of the deal. But
Yeah.
23 years old, that was phenomenal to
Oh,
make.
totally. I mean, how long did it take you to get that deal?
Not that long. I think two things. I think I put my head down when I started and worked really hard and did everything
Yep.
that Marks and Millichap and Josh asked me to do. But then like 2013, 2014, deals were just coming
Oh man,
together,
it
right?
was
Those are the
moving. It was
days.
moving. Values were low. There was lots of
Yeah.
transactional volume. People were happy as shit that people wanted to buy their real estate.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
lots
My
of
job was a lot easier
money
back in
flowing in.
2014 than it is now. I'll tell you that.
Way better, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I once had an intern do cold calling for us. And on his first day, on his fourth call, he got a deal under contract. It was like the most
Yeah.
ridiculous thing ever. So he had this expectation. He got a nice fee. He was in college. I think he got like 5 grand or something. And he was like, this is incredible. And he had that expectation. Then, of course, he worked another year and never got another deal. It's sort of the way it works, you know?
There's so many stories like that. And on a bigger scale, you'll have somebody that just makes a six-figure commission on their first deal. And while that deal's kind of materializing, they see the paycheck and they're like, yeah, I'll be able to do this, a few times a year. And then you stop prospecting, you stop doing what got you to that
Yeah,
point.
totally.
And then they're out of the business in a year or two. So that was the biggest thing for me is like as I had deals starting to roll in, keeping the mentality of just continuing to push forward and prospecting and meeting new people and trying to bring more business in.
Do you think your experience as an athlete and training for all those years was instrumental in sort of you being able to approach business in sort of an iterative way like that, like, day to day building something?
100%. Yeah, it's funny. I think we've got six former college athletes out of 14 agents in our
Yeah.
office. So that's been organic. We haven't like targeted athletes specifically, but I do think there's definitely a synergy between being a college athlete and having success in this business. It's a lot of like having the mentality of knowing that you're doing a bunch of things now that are not going to pay dividends, and
Yeah.
definitely not it could be the short term, even the long term. But just putting your head down and doing the same thing over and over. And that sounds so intuitive and so easy when I convey it to you like that. And everyone's like, no shit, of course, that's what you have to do. But when you're 22, 23, having that mindset in this business where things come to you, you think you're going to get a deal done, things seem like they're happening, then it all blows up overnight. And you're kind of starting from scratch. That's tough for people to deal with if they don't have that type of background. And athletics that's such a huge help.
No, it is. It's like you have that bad game experience as a hockey player or something else, and then you always have the next game. And then you go have a
Right.
hat trick in the next game, and you're better. Like I had an experience with my 12-year-old son this year where he played basketball. He wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. He had he had a didn't get much playing time. Had a bad game against a team, and he was upset after the game. He was crying. He was telling my wife and I, hey, I don't know what I've done wrong here. I should be starting this and that. And then next thing we say, send an email to the coach, ask what you should
Yeah.
do. The next game, they play the best team. He had three-pointers in the second half. He was the hero. They were holding him up after the game. He won by two. And you have that experience of, hey, things go poorly. And you've got to work harder. You work harder, and then you have a better outcome, and you keep
Right.
going, right? And you know
And
that
it's
it's
also, I love that you put it on him. And it's like, hey, you send that email, you deal with it.
totally,
I'm not going to go in on your behalf. I don't care that
totally.
you're 12 years old. You can go talk to an adult, and
That's
that's
right.
great.
Like,
That's a really cool
and I
experience.
said, listen, your attitude on the bench when you're not playing is bad. You're sulking.
Yeah.
And no coach wants to see that shit because
Yeah.
I've coached a lot and you get that. And the kids and I said, have a positive attitude. The next game, he was cheering everybody on. I
That's
swear to
great.
God, that's the reason the coach put him in more. And
What a cool lesson. I mean, that'll carry forward into his professional life 1000%.
absolutely. And he played extremely well. And part of it was the positive attitude at which he approached it, right? Which you certainly need in brokerage, right? You need to have a positive attitude and like
Yeah.
have that ability to like wake up the next day after a shitty day where you had like 10 people hang up on you
Yeah.
and give it a go again, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What do you like about brokerage? Like what got you going in the beginning in terms of like what was the momentum booster? And then what do you like now about what you do? Because what you do today is very, very different than what you
So,
did
so different.
15 years. It's a different job.
I mean, when I first started, I was frankly, I don't want to discredit myself, but I was lucky to be employed. Other than being a college athlete, I didn't
Yeah,
really have anything to bring to the table. So
totally.
brokerage is one of those industries where even if you don't have a corporate resume, you can come in and if someone believes in you and you're willing to do the work, you could be successful. So just getting my foot in the door is something that I liked. I was just happy to be working somewhere.
Which,
And then
by the
it
way,
was,
what a good attitude to have instead of the attitude of entitlement. You're like, look, I was a good hockey player, wasn't good enough to play professionally, although I'm
yeah,
sure like every other kid who went to Division 1 sport, Division 1 college wanted to play,
oh, for sure. Yeah,
and then once that dream fades away, it's like, hey man, I'm really glad these people have given me an opportunity and you
yeah.
and you put that into the job, right?
100%. It was obviously the money. There was that opportunity to make more money than I otherwise would have made if I was a W-2 employee.
Yeah.
And now it's like honestly, brokerage to me at this point, it's little adrenaline bursts throughout the day of like
Yeah.
putting something together, working with interesting people that are good to work with, that are creative, and in this environment right now, honestly, like the creative deal making that we're having to make makes the job a lot more fulfilling. It's a lot more
Yeah,
challenging and it's a lot more brain damage, but it's cool and it's interesting because things are evolving. I mean, I can't point to a market in the country right now that is evolving and changing on a weekly, monthly, daily basis more than DC.
totally.
So you really got to have your finger on the pulse. You've got to be in the mix. You've got to be building, really strong relationships. So on the brokerage side, that's fun. And then just running the company has its, as you know, you're on your own company. It's like one day it's the greatest gift in the world, and the next day you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but I wouldn't. I honestly, I just had a lunch with somebody, and they were asking me, how is it? I'm like, it's miserable, but I wouldn't trade it. It's sick, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
genuinely enjoy what I'm doing, even though it's a lot of brain damage, right, to own a company, especially a small company. Like a small company like mine, it's like everything comes to you
Well,
every
that's
single
right.
day.
I mean, the companies, my wife runs a company. She does, healthcare at DC housing projects. She has 4 clinics across the city and she's done an amazing job. But she was, like you were doing sales and now you run a company. She was doing nursing at a high level and now she runs a company and she has 14 employees. And
Yep.
all of the stuff, I always say, like all the shit flows uphill and everything
Hmm.
comes to her, right? And until you
Yep.
get bigger and you have a
Yep.
staff, a real team, an HR
Yep.
person, et cetera, it's all on you, man. Something goes
100%.
wrong, it comes to you. Something goes right, it comes to you too. So those are the highs, but
Yep.
it's tough when you're at that size. I'm one of the owners of a title company, and once we got to, you know, 30, 40, 50 employees, you started having enough of a team that my partners who run it day to day are a little bit insulated from some of those things. You've got to get to some scale, otherwise it's pretty challenging.
I always say this, the in between where we are, it's a tough place to be. You need to decide that you're going to scale down and be very
That's
small and
right.
efficient and nimble, or you're going to grow past that medium-sized company. So we're like this small to medium-sized company, and it's challenging. But again, for whatever reason, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that some of the fulfillment is like the relationships you build with the people on your team and like seeing some people like become successful. I've gotten to know Hannah on your team who does,
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff in, I guess in Montgomery County and PG County,
Yep.
a lot of commercial stuff. She's amazing. The thoughtfulness and creativity that she has in approaching deals, I
Yeah.
think is
She's
really
amazing.
impressive. So you see people like that and, they have families and other things going on, but they're making money in brokerage and doing their thing. It's nice, it's nice to see.
It's amazing. It's really cool when you can look to somebody like Hannah's such a great example of someone she's a very talented broker. She's very smart. She's very thoughtful. She's very creative. But like the fact that she is leveraging our infrastructure and what we've built, and she's getting value out of that, and she
Yeah, totally.
appreciates that value, like that, aside from the money she's generating that's coming to the company, like that's the best part about it, is she sees value in something that you've spent a lot of time building and you put a lot into. That's the coolest part.
Yeah, she's been deeply impressive to me. For those of you out there, she represents me on a transaction. She's helped me lease a building. And, we sort of almost lost the lease in the beginning. Her creativity helped it happen and persistence. And then more recently, she helped us with kind of a restructuring, which was quite impressive. And, I really highly recommend her if anybody's looking for a broker in that portion of the market. Back to your point earlier about creativity, it's really important to be creative, whether it's a sale transaction or a lease transaction, and she certainly has that. What's the hardest part about your job right now?
Well, I look through a lens. My lens is I own the brokerage company, and so from a geography standpoint, we are everything from Richmond all the way up. Now we've got somebody working up in Baltimore. Effectively, every product at this point. I think the only deal we haven't touched in some form or fashion is a data center deal, which I'd love to get
Okay.
involved in.
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Yeah.
that's all the rage right now.
I bet.
But me personally, because I wear two hats, I own the company and then I'm doing deals as an agent or broker. My 90% of what I do is in DC. So I'm looking at it through the lens
Yep.
of DC. And I don't
Yep.
have to tell you how challenging DC is right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
Depending on where the property is, what the property is, obviously there's a lot of caveats to what I'm saying. To get a deal done right now, it is rarely seamless. It
Yep.
involves so much more work than it used to, and so much more hand-holding,
Yeah.
depending on the type of transaction. And we work with investors, developers, owner users. So you're working with different type of buyers that have different needs, and it's crazy right now. So we're starting to see things pick up that's tied mostly to the amount of distress that's in the DC market right now. It's not so
Yep.
much that the market seems to be improving.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just seems like a lot of the distress is starting to flush its way through the market for
That's
different
true. Yeah.
reasons.
And there's actual money chasing the distressed stuff, right? And people who can
Hmm.
perform. So I think you're seeing some of that. You're seeing banks move some product, bank structure deals with stuff. I think you're
Yep.
working for some banks.
Yep. We are. We're doing a lot.
And
When I first started, we didn't do any distress stuff. I didn't really,
yeah,
other
totally.
than banks financing, the deals that I was involved in, we
Right.
didn't work on their behalf. We are
Right.
working on
Well, there
behalf of,
wasn't really anything
there was no
distressed about it. I
distress.
mean, the distress had kind of worked its way through the market.
Yeah,
I started Congressional Capital in January of 2011, and it was like an uphill, an upmarket roll for a bunch of years, right? I mean, we
it
just saw
was.
DC
Yeah.
get better and better and better, and more people, young people like yourself, were like sitting in places like Bowling Green and being like, I should live in DC, and then
Yeah.
it was one after the next. And, you'd interview people like you'd be a guy like me interviewing people on Zooms and you'd say, or not Zoom, before Zoom. And you'd say, why do you want to come to DC? I heard it's really cool. Like some of my, roommates or my fraternity mates or sorority mates, say it's awesome. I'm like, oh, but you never been there? No, no, but it's DC.
That was literally why I moved here. I've been here one time in my life.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, capital of the free world looks like a cool
Yeah.
place. I should go there. And in terms of, what you've seen in DC and what you see now, what's your sort of short-term, medium-term, and long-term view of the city?
Short term is going to be challenging. I think you've got a lot of headwinds for all
Yeah,
the reasons that people understand. I don't need to get into too much. You've got Doge, which I think like interest rates and Doge kind of uncovered a lot of the issues that DC's had for 20 years, and people knew, like people talk about permitting in DC and TOPA and rent control. Those things permitting has always been tough to get done
yeah,
in DC.
yeah,
TOPA's been around, rent control's been around, but people tended to ignore, not focus on those issues because there was growth over the last 20 years. Every year,
yeah,
3,
exactly.
4, 5, 6% growth per year. So those issues got masked, but they were still issues. And I started to see it in 23 as interest rates started to, I wouldn't even say creep up because they went up very quickly.
Oh no, yeah, they ripped up. Yeah,
They
there
were
was no
ripped up. You
creeping at
started to
all.
see it then, and then you had Trump administration coming in. There was some positivity around that administration change, as there always is, and him maybe being more pro real estate, business friendly. So there was some excitement, some momentum building from that, and then obviously you had Doge,
Which
and
was a
so
shock, I think a shock to many, if not most.
huge.
And
Yeah.
and I think there was this notional concept that Trump was like a urban person. He was going to put some energy into DC and want to really revitalize it. And you've heard little words here and there, but it certainly hasn't been a focus, right?
No, it hasn't. So it's challenging now. You've got the mayoral race coming up in June that I think a lot of developers are worried about, and
Yeah,
I'm very curious to see how that plays out. And I think I have a feeling who might win, and we will see how much conviction they have on some of the policies that they've talked about. What's real and what's not. It's similar to what I think is going on in New York to some degree. But I have a lot of investors, developers, owner users on pause a little bit, waiting to see what happens with that election.
interesting,
So I think
interesting.
short term will be challenging. The market is picking up
Yeah, the
from an
market's
activity
getting
standpoint.
getting better from an activity standpoint. Even
Yeah.
the sort of resale market, et cetera, is getting better in the city. Like it's gotten better. It's better than last year. I mean, I think the shockwave
Yeah.
of Doge, you look, it's better than bad, right? Meaning,
Yeah.
it's a modified bad. If last year was as bad as it could get with Doge and with ICE and the National Guard and all that stuff. Things have calmed down. I've heard the government's rehiring kind of quietly some of the people that were laid off. So there's
Yeah.
there's more activity here. I think there's a little bit more positivity, not a lot.
Yeah.
And I do think there's more activity for sure. It's a uphill battle. I mean, I think there's some things coming down the line, like the redevelopment of the RFK site that are going to be great for the city, and hopefully other things like that can happen.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I don't obviously just look through the lens of investors and developers. We work with a lot of owner users. So we interface with a lot of small business owners in DC. And actually over the last week, surprisingly, I've heard a few of them say like business has been really strong, whether it be in the F&B space